What is up, Raidernation? It's your boy Samori back at it again with another video, and we got some things to talk about in today's video. First and foremost, I want to talk about Antonio Pierce, and could this be the last 2 games of Antonio Pierce's head coaching career with the Las Vegas Raiders? A lot of things have been going around, a lot of speculations, a lot of rumors going around, a lot of people saying that Antonio Pierce most likely will be gone after this season. And even though I don't really agree with this, you know, I've been one of those guys that feels like we should give him at least another chance to go out there and see what he can do next season. But that doesn't matter at the end of the day. Mark Davis wants to see results. The Raider Nation wants to see results. And we know that if we want to win, we got to put the right pieces in place. And I wouldn't mind as long as we do win games. Now, before I continue to talk about Antonio Pierce and the future head coaching position, I want to talk about one guy that's going to be making a lot of decisions going into the offseason, and that guy being Tom Brady. According to Vinny B, Raiders owner Mark Davis sees new minority owner Tom Brady's next role as running football operations, working above the GM and the head coach. It's been reported numerous times that Brady will have a loud voice and will help in search of the Raiders' next quarterback, but it is also now being reported by Diana Rossini that Brady will have a big hand in navigating Mark Davis and hiring a head coach in an event that the franchise moves on from coach Antonio Pierce. Of course, we all know that the Raider Nation, a lot of the players wanted to keep Antonio Pierce as the actual head coach. After last season, the hype was there. Everybody was all excited. It felt like the franchise was rejuvenated. And then the Raiders went out and hired Antonio Pierce, and we all had hopes of turning this franchise around in just one season. And now fast forward to the end of this season, we are sitting at 3-12, most likely going to have a top 10 pick in the NFL draft. We can't even tank right at the end of the day, but this is not what Mark Davis foreseen this team going at the beginning of the year. Whether you say that, you know, Antonio Pierce had enough weapons, was he set up for failure? Was this his fault? Is he a good head coach? Is he a bad head coach? Did we not have the right pieces in place? It doesn't matter. The facts show that the Raiders are one of the worst teams in the NFL today, and that's not what we want to see moving forward. Now, Rome wasn't built in one day, and I feel like as Raider fans, as NFL fans in general, everybody expects to turn the franchise around just like that. But lo and behold, our franchise has not been relevant since the early 2000s. Yes, we've had 2 stints in the playoffs, but nothing to show for after that. So with reports like this coming out, with a lot of people thinking that Antonio Pierce might be on his way out, is it fair? I don't know, but we all know that the NFL is a results-based business, and if we don't have results, then his ass is most likely out. Whether I like it, whether I don't, whether you guys like it or not, where there's smoke, there's fire. And I do believe that now, as the days continue to go, and with Patrick Graham, with reports saying that Patrick Graham did not sign his extension with the Raiders to stay on team after the season, most likely going to be gone, I feel like the writing is on the wall. And with people saying that Tom Brady is going to have a hand on picking who the next head coach and even the next quarterback will be, that just goes to show that this could possibly be true. And on top of all that, we know that Tom Telesco and AP are not a package deal. So whatever happens to Tom Telesco does not happen to AP. Whatever happens to AP does not happen to Tom Telesco. And I feel like Tom is going to stay on board. You know, Tom's going to stay with Tom. You get what I'm saying there?
What?
But nonetheless, Raider Nation, one potential candidate that has been named possibly the next Raiders head coach has been former Tennessee Titans head coach Mike Vrabel. Of course, Antonio Pierce hasn't been fired yet, but there are reports that he could be coaching his last games with the team. According to Brian Costello, he says that there have been murmurings linking former Tennessee Titans head coach Mike Vrabel to the Raiders if Antonio Pierce is let go. I think Vrabel is heading for the Raiders. Murmurings in the league have him going to Las Vegas. Now, Vrabel did spend 6 years with the Tennessee Titans as their head coach with a 54-45 record, taking them to 3 playoff appearances with 1 AFC Championship game appearance. Now the question is, should the Raiders actually consider Mike Vrabel as the next head coach if anything was to happen to AP? I do feel like he has some of the intangibles that AP has, especially as a guy that can motivate the locker room and have the team run through a wall for him. He does have that championship pedigree as a linebacker, just like AP, but the only thing that I feel like is a little bit different is the fact that he has some coaching experience, being a good coach and leading a winning team for multiple years. On top of that, he already has that relationship with our minority owner in Tom Brady. Vrabel, just like Antonio Pierce, loves to establish the run as well, establish it on the offense and trying to stop it on the defensive side of the ball. Now, granted, he did have Derrick Henry as his bell cow running back for years in Nashville, and he's been able to carry a huge workload in the run game. The Raiders do sit at the number 6 spot in the NFL draft, so who knows if Mike Vrabel was to come over here to Las Vegas, they go and draft Ashton Jeanty in the first round and give him that workload that, you know, Derrick Henry had years ago with the Tennessee Titans. I mean, if the Raiders were to keep AP as well, I feel like establishing that run game with a running back like Ashton Jeanty would be huge for whoever we bring in over here as the head coach. Of course, I'm not going to overlook the quarterback position because that's definitely a position that we've been lacking for many years and we should address in this draft, but I'm just kind of stating my ideas as of right now. I mean, a lot of things can change leading up into the NFL draft. Now, one guy that I'm really nervous about with all the moving parts going around, with all the rumors, reports going around on possibly moving on from Antonio Pierce and bringing in a whole new regime. You know, we're not going to have Patrick Graham here. Most likely not going to have Scott Turner, Norv Turner here. It's going to be a whole new coaching staff over here in Las Vegas. That guy being Maxx Crosby. Now, Maxx Crosby voiced his opinions and voiced his frustrations, kind of venting about how the organization has been and is tired with all the inconsistencies with this organization.
Years of inconsistency, you know what I mean? It's new coaches every other year and this and this and that and new teammates. And there's been plenty of times where I'm like, damn, like this D-line is cold. And then I come back and every single one of them's gone. You know what I mean? And it's like, what the you know what I mean? And then it just, there's on and on and on. There's a lot of things. So it's just like, it's tough, bro. Because I feel for Miles because he's in that same boat. The Raider fans have been dope as and I love them to death. Like that's one thing through everything. Like the fans have truly since day one like embraced me and being in their corner, and I think it's been the dopest shit. Like even with my injuries and all the shit, like the support has been like the coolest shit ever. And so yeah, there's so many different things that got to be talked about. So it's gonna be interesting. I'm looking forward to it.
Of course, as Raider fans, we know how bad this organization has been, how much we've flip-flopped, so many people coming in and out. We've always got a new regime almost every 2 years, and it has become frustrating and it has been tiring, especially for guys like, you know, Maxx Crosby, who has dealt with a lot since he's been drafted. You know, the whole Gruden era coming in and leaving, Bisaccia leaving, Josh McDaniels coming in with Dave Ziegler leaving, Patrick Graham most likely going to be gone. And now the guy that he's been fighting for, the guy that he's been vouching for, AP, to be the head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders just last season, will most likely be on his way out as well. What does that say to some of our top players? And with an influx of players coming in and out, I know it might not be easy. We've talked about Devontae Adams being frustrated. He only been with the Raiders, what, 2.5 years? And Maxx Crosby, who's going into, what, 6-7 years with the Raiders? I don't blame him for feeling the way that he does. And I know he wants to stay a Raider for years to come. He's got it tatted on him. I mean, Josh Jacobs does as well, and Cleveland Farrell. But Maxx Crosby has been the identity of this team. And to hear his frustrations, you can't really blame him. You can't blame anybody, whether it was Derek Carr and anybody before that. This organization has been horrible. I just hope that we don't get to that point where Maxx Crosby does request a trade, or he doesn't want to be a part of this team, or the Raiders have to move on from him. Now, this is not him saying any of that, but we always know that there's never going to be a guy that's going to stay with the team forever unless the Raiders actually start winning. Derek Carr was the last guy that stayed with the team for many years, and we have been inconsistent. And I mean, he hasn't played well as well, but his time came up. And I'm just hoping that this team, if we do move on from AP, if we do move on from this regime, I hope we go and make the right decision, bring in a head coach that at least has some experience, and I hope that we draft well, we bring in the right players, and we can turn things around next season. I know we've been saying that for many years, but I don't know, maybe I'm being a little bit biased, but I do believe that this team can turn it around next year. Now, I do want to talk about quarterbacks just real quick, because we know that quarterback is on the top of a lot of our lists. And with the Raiders sitting at that number 6 position, we most likely will not be able to get Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders. Now, a lot of things can happen. We could lose the last 2 games and we could fluctuate back into the top 5. But as far as the number 6 spot, the Raiders could possibly reach on a guy like Jalen Moreau or wait to get somebody in the 2nd round. But one name that I've seen floating around just today was the Raiders possibly pursuing quarterback JJ McCarthy.
Oh, hell no!
Now, As crazy as this sound, I'm like, the season ain't even over and we talking about trading for players that just got drafted last year. But I say this to say, you know, Diana Rossini came out with a quote saying that the Vikings spent a first-round pick on JJ McCarthy last spring and Darnold is in for a big payday in March. Despite that, after conversations with the team source, one thing is clear: the Vikings want Darnold back in Minnesota for 2025. While the original plan was for McCarthy to slowly develop into a starting quarterback while Darnold was there to hold the rookie's place, McCarthy's injury changes things. Now the Vikings have a problem. Darnold has been almost too good, not in a bad way, but in a this is now complicated way. McCarthy hasn't played since August, and realistically, he won't be fully in the mix until spring at the earliest. Now, with all that being said, first of all, I think the Vikings would be stupid to even consider trading away JJ McCarthy. I think this is the perfect situation for him, and that he could sit down right now, wait till he heals up, and just have Sam Darnold be the starting quarterback until he eventually sucks. Then you could put in JJ McCarthy and let him dominate, or just have Sam Darnold be a backup quarterback. Who gives a fuck how much you pay him? JJ McCarthy is on a rookie contract. Now, too, the article that I read came from Raiders Beat, and they brought up the fact that the Raiders could pursue a trade for JJ McCarthy. Why bring us up in this? But, you know, my simple answer to this is hell no. There's no reason for the Raiders to even go and try to pursue JJ McCarthy. There's people in the draft that we could go and get. There's people in free agency that we can go and get. Yes, JJ McCarthy, I loved him coming into the draft last year, the same as Bo Nix and all those other guys. But there's no reason for the Raiders to try to go and trade for JJ McCarthy right now. And from what I read, it could possibly be the Raiders giving up the 6th overall pick. Now, like I said, a lot of things can change up until the NFL draft, but giving up our first round pick to go and get JJ McCarthy, hell no. I'd rather use that pick to go and get the best player available at that position. And there's a lot of great defensive players in this draft that we could get to turn things around. Heck, even offensive players if we want to go that direction. But the fact that we're possibly thinking about trading our first round pick and maybe something else to go get JJ McCarthy is crazy. Now, he does have a high ceiling. A lot of things can change, but he's coming off of an injury, and I don't think that the Raiders should go and try to acquire another person, another quarterback to come over here and hopefully save this organization. At that point, I'd rather trade up from the 6th spot and try to go get Shador or Cam Ward in the first, 1, 2, 3 picks in this year's draft. But I just wanted to bring this up because I thought this was just beyond me. I thought this was crazy, but maybe I'm the crazy one. So let me know what you guys would think about this, Raider Nation. Would you guys go and try to make a trade for JJ McCarthy right now and give up maybe our first round pick and maybe something else? Would you guys do that? Let me know down in the comments below, because I think that's crazy. But since we're talking about quarterbacks, reports came out today, according to Al Breer, that Raiders assistant general manager Champ Kelly is currently in attendance at the 2024 Pop-Tarts Bowl to scout quarterback Cam Ward. Now, I feel like the Raiders should scout every quarterback that's going into the draft and try to pick the right guy. Now, I know that Cam Ward is on top of a lot of people's list, as well as Shador Sanders, and I wouldn't mind either of them. I believe that they both are two good quarterbacks that have a high ceiling that can bring something to whatever organization drafts them. And Cam Ward is one guy that has the highest ceiling in this draft to be a great player, but he also has the lowest floor. And if the Raiders were possibly able to get him in the draft, then I'd be happy with that, especially in the first round. Now, there are other quarterbacks out there. I know there's a Jalen Moreau out there. A lot of people might not like that, just hearing the name, but when you really dive in and look at the player that he is, he has all the tools to be a really good quarterback in the NFL. He's just got to clean up a lot of things, a lot of his mistakes, but he has all the intangibles to be a great quarterback. Dylan Gabriel is also another quarterback that can be great. That height might slow him down, but you look at guys like Bryce Young and even Russell Wilson, who are still excelling in the NFL. He can possibly be another option for our Las Vegas Raiders. So whoever it may be, Raider Nation, I want to get your thoughts on everything that we talked about in today's video. What do you guys think about Antonio Pierce and moving on from him and bringing in a guy like Mike Vrabel? Outside of Cam Ward and Shador Sanders, who's that quarterback that you would rather have on this team if we're not able to get those top two? And do you feel like JJ McCarthy could possibly be a target for the Raiders in the trade market? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Until the next one, we got a game tomorrow, and hopefully we lose. I'm just joking. Until the next one, this is your boy Simone Raider and your boys. Yeah.